informative radio for the Sunshine State.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a condition value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
I say everybody's so nice here. Since I've been in town, they can't seem to do enough for me. They gave me a big car to drive around, a big Rolls Royce. See, my wife says, "Let me drive that thing. I can stop it on a dime." She did. But the dime was in the little old man's pocket. She's driving, the guy stepped off the curb, and I says, "Give him the right of way." And she plows right into him. "What did you do that for?" "You told me to." "I said give him the right of way." "I thought you said get him right away." Well, we were out driving. Hey, I don't know who laid out these freeways, but you got to be proud of him over at the asylum, I'll tell you that. Well, you get on one of them things you want to get off, you better be in the right lane at the right time, make the right. It happened to me. But I didn't mind. I'd never been to Kansas City before anyhow. Anyhow, we're driving, see, and we go into this gas station. You know what I can't understand about a gas station? The cash box is out in the open, the office is out in the open, and they lock the restrooms. Give me my hat, will you? I got a joke for you. I got a joke for you. You better leave the hat out. Where's it at? Has he got it again? Yeah. You've been in my Geritol, ain't you? I got a joke for you. I was driving the other day to avoid an accident. I had to pull in front of a lady driver. She was very nice about the whole thing. Said something about the beach. I didn't hear what it was. "Why, you got a funny beach around here, huh?" This dear little lady, she must have been nearsighted. She mistook me for a Spaniard. She called me Sebastian. I heard that. I got a joke for you. Now, if you've heard this, don't stop me, because I'm dying to hear it again. See? Two highway patrolmen, they're driving, see? One of these officers turned to his buddy and says, "You realize that we've been on duty all day? We haven't given out one ticket." He says, "We nabbed the next car that goes by." Now, it's a big Cadillac. They tail this guy, but he stays in the right lane, uses the proper hand signals. The directional lights are perfect. He stays within the maximum speed. So one officer says to his buddy, "I've never seen anyone drive this carefully before. We ought to congratulate that guy." So they pull him over. Says, "Nothing wrong, sir, nothing wrong. Just wanted to congratulate you. 35 years I've been on the highway patrol. I have never seen anyone drive so carefully." This guy says, "When you're crocked, you got to be careful."
You know, I'm a voter. Aren't you supposed to lie to me and kiss my butt?
Set the Wayback Machine.
Yes, sir, Mr. Peabody.
Hey, this is Wayne Carini from Chasing Classic Cars, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. You know what? What comes after that? I don't remember. All right.
Well, this is actually the part I edited where he said, run to your computers and search tantalknetwork.com where you can hear us live in the studio. If you want to see us live in the studio, then you go to nostalgicradioandcars.com.
Oh, okay. That's it. Anyway, but if you want to go to find out all about us, go to our website, gulfstreammotorsports.com. Right, Robert?
Right, then you pick up from that part. Yes.
Okay. Well, I have to change my intro then, don't I?
A little bit.
Okay. So anyway, definitely, if you want to find out and tune in some of our past
the archives.
The past shows, go to Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, car guys, car girls, sports car fans. I think I just rolled off the airplane here about 4:20 this afternoon.
And you have a special top secret assignment to find an MGB. But
I have a special top secret. Yeah, somebody just told me they wanted to look for an MGB because they need something small to fit in the garage that has a top that goes down, and they can put two big dogs in the back of it.
You figure out the rest.
And you figure out the rest. Okay, so that's the only car that fits that description is a reliable, little dependable, little cool British little MGB. One that has a top that goes down. Unlike Miss Moneypenny, who was a hardtop GT. Anyway, all right. So I just got back from Monterey, California. I was out there since Wednesday of last week. We had a whole bunch of people on, and I got to tell you, pretty impressive. Of course, you know the pièce de résistance is the Pebble Beach Concourse, and it's just absolutely amazing because it's the cars, it's the people, it's the stories, it's the whole 9 yards. Of course, it's California, you know. Which I was actually talking to my uncle who goes out there with me all the time. And we're talking about California, as messed up, as effed up as the political situation is out there. You know, the people are pretty cool. And the country is definitely God's country. There's no question about that. I mean, the scenery, the weather, I don't think I was just short sleeves shirt the whole time, except for in the morning and the evening when the fog rolled in. And, you know, it was dry. We had the windows open, no screens, no bugs. It's kind of cool. You know, Florida is like the bug capital of the world. I mean, you know, they kind of wait. They sit around my garage knowing that right about 6:15, just as the sun goes down, maybe a little bit later nowadays, and they just all kind of gather, you know, like stormtroopers, and then they just wait. And then when it's just right about dusk, the mosquitoes come buzzing around. Bzzz. So for about 30, 40 minutes, you're just getting, you know, dive bombed and stung the living daylights out of by a bunch of bloodthirsty little bloodsucker mosquitoes. But anyway, out there, not a bug in sight, not even a rattlesnake, but it's just so cool. I mean, it's like, you know, what's cool about California is you got hills, you got mountains. It's got a little Florida in it, you know, because it's got some flatland, it's got mountains. So it's like Europe. It's got the coastline, it's got rocks and all that kind of cool stuff, which a little bit like Spain, if you've ever been to Spain, and some parts of Italy along the Mediterranean there. You know, I mean, the mountains like the Alps, you know, it's just beautiful out there. I know. Stop. Okay. Anyway, but I do like it out there. So the car thing, Pebble Beach was absolutely outstanding. The car that won was a Duesenberg, an Italian-bodied Duesenberg, I might add. Pretty cool car. It was 100 years of Lincoln Continental. They unveiled, you know me, I don't like electric cars. I'm not going to buy into it at all today, tomorrow, the next day. But I get the concept car thing, and they had this, I'm not sure what it was, but it was giant. It was this giant Lincoln, and it was just, you know, an exercise in technology is really what a lot of concept cars are. And the thing was amazing. I mean, you know, it's 100 years Lincoln Continental, you know, because in 1922, they actually started in 1919. And Henry Ford, Edsel convinced his dad to buy the company because they needed a Heinlein car to compete with Cadillac. Actually, it was started by, I think, Mr. Leyland or whoever it was with Cadillac. And so, you know, they bought Lincoln. And Lincoln, you know, I've had a few of those over the years, particularly a 61 Continental four-door. My mom had a 69. Hey, that's interesting. My mom had the last year. I had the first year of the suicide doors. Beautiful car. Our friends up there at Mob Steel in Michigan, they're big Lincoln guys. Lincolns were everywhere. But the shows, okay, the auctions, we were at RM, they were talking, well, you know, we're going to hit maybe somewhere around $200 million in car sales. 240, I think is what it was, 235, 240. Just a record. But it was the auction, 3 nights, state of the art. Gooding did over 100 million. And just amazing cars. Lamborghini is one of my favorite, 350 GTs. And Miuras, Porsches, Ferraris, it was all there. Bonhams, the same thing, had some amazing cars, Jaguars, Ferraris, vintage Delahaye's, a lot of pre-war classics, some really pretty beautiful brass era cars. The Quail was a great event. It's gotten very, very, very trendy. Motorlux, again, a lot of fun, very, 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 very trendy. And, you know, it's like they're really going after the guys that are about, you know, in their 40s, you know, successful people, because the cars that were there, a lot of them were 90s cars. What's that thing called? Radwood? Is that what it's called, Bobby? If you get a chance, guys, Google Radwood. Radwood is kind of like a modern day, I don't want to call it a concourse, but it's kind of like a gathering, you know, like a community of car guys that are car enthusiasts from cars out of the 80s and 90s and obviously early 2000s. Those cars were doing fantastic. Pagani was there, and they had a huge display. In fact, over at the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, I'm just going to say Laguna Seca, Pagani had an exhibition out there. They were running their cars up and down the track, had a huge display there. The vintage cars was, as always, just a lot of fun. But what was interesting this year on Sunday, and we went to that, and that was in the morning, and that was the hill climb. So what they did basically is they went up backwards around the top. So basically counterclockwise, actually clockwise, but counter their normal rotation. And they went up the hill, up the corkscrew. And I've got a couple of videos, and I have to post those of some cars screaming up and down. And one in particular was a well-known drifter with a C5. Might have been a C7 Corvette. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell. It was going by so fast, and all it was just in this blaze of smoke. It was really cool. But Monterey is just, it's a car guy haven. I mean, probably the coolest thing is you don't even really have to go to half the shows, because all you have to do is just walk along the street side, and you can just see some of the coolest, most expensive, most exotic, most amazing, most classic cars on the planet. Reggie Jackson's got a store downtown, so he had his kind of like an open house, and he had some of his Chevrolets out there, his Corvettes and his Camaros and Z28s and Chevelles and things like that. And then his buddy brought a couple Ferraris over. Legends of the Autobahn, which is just strictly German cars, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen. They had a great display there. Works Reunion, which is Porsche only primarily. And I saw my friend Vu from PCA, and those guys had a great show there. Some pretty amazing Porsches. Anything from 911s, 356s, and the late model Carreras and things like that. Just really, and the GT2s, GT3s, and the RSs, and all the other late model stuff. In fact, I was surprised because the majority of these events didn't really have a lot of vintage cars. They were mostly, 2000s. And but there's still a good supply of old car guys like me driving their vintage stuff around there. I mean, it's just some oddball stuff, just really neat stuff. And then, of course, we made our traditional trek to Dade's. And Dade is a car dealer there that kind of does what I do. He didn't really have a junkyard, but he's got project cars. I mean, Porsches, Rolls-Royce. He had a Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible there. It actually was kind of a cool car. 911s, MGs. And the car that he had that Wayne Carini borrowed and took to the Concours de Le Mans, which is a lot of fun. I mean, it's just like you got to Google it, Concours de Le Mans, and that's just a lot of fun. I mean, the place was packed. It was, all you were looking at was the back of heads and cars. I mean, everybody's just in their way, and people had a lot of fun there. But Wayne drove a early 50s or mid 50s BMW, I think it's called a 502 sedan, and which was a V8, interestingly enough, and had the same motor I think as the 507, so it'd be about 56, 57, 58, somewhere in there, four-door sedan. And he won the award Best of Show with that car at Concours de Le Mans. And our friend Tim Sutter over there, Grassroots Motorsports, a classic car motorsports, Classic Motorsports magazine, whatever it is, something like that. I'm close, right, Bobby? Anyway,
you're correct. It came in the mail.
It came in the mail. All right, so I got my subscription. Anyway, but it's like I talk about SEMA. SEMA, it's the same thing. Amelia Island, Scottsdale. These are like family reunions. If you go to these events all around the country all the time, you just get to be buddies with a lot of people, and it's like you look forward to hanging out and seeing everybody. And my friend Mark was there, my uncle Art was there, and it's just really, really, really cool. Just meet some fascinating people. So on that note, Bobby's going to fire up the stereo, and we're going to get our special guest on the line tonight. And this gentleman's a well-known, car designer and automotive artist, pinstriper, illustrator. I mean, his resume is like 10 miles long, but he's a car guy. That's the most important thing, and that's why we're having him on the show this evening. So, Bobby, why don't you go ahead and fire up the...
we're going to play our first song.
Oh, we're going to play our first song. Yeah. And
by the Ripcords.
By the Ripcords. Hey, little Cobra, because there was tons and tons of Cobras. In fact, my friend Peter Cliff from Dream Car Garage was out there, and he won an award with his Cobra 289 race car. Hey, you're tuning to Nostalgic Radio Cars. Don't touch that dial. I will be right back.
Don't you know you're gonna shut them down? When the flag went down, you could hear rubber burn. The Stingray had me going into the turn. I hung a big shift and I got into high. And when I flew by the Stingray, I waved bye-bye. Cobra, don't you know you're gonna shut them down? Around the far turn in the straightaway, I was blowing off everything that got in my way. The Stingrays and Jags were so far behind, I took my Cobra out of gear and let it coast to the line.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a diminished value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Okay, we're back. God, that's music to my ears. I just love to hear a nice dragster burnout at the track. In fact, we're going to have somebody on from, there's a gentleman out in California that's a super serious car guy, and he's also a former drag racer, but he has an amazing collection, and he recreated the famous Lions dragway start line with the boxes and a recreation of the timing booth and the whole 9 yards. And that's going to be a real interesting story. We had a few guys on over the years that have all raced there. Anyway, Monterey has definitely got to be on your radar for next year. Definitely Pebble Beach. The Concorso event was just absolutely incredible as well, particularly if you like Italian cars. And there was a really good selection of Panteras there. And I'm a big Pantera fan, having owned one once before. I like those cars. Isos, Lamborghinis, obviously, and the car that won was a Bizzarini 3500 Strada, a beautiful car. And so again, if you really want to see some entry, you need to put this on your bucket list. There's no other event in the United States like it, just because of all the events that take place and all the stuff that's going on for a week. You need to budget a week out of your life to kind of go there and have the experience of a lifetime going to Monterey Car Week. On that note, Bobby's going to go ahead and play another little song. And there's a connection here with this song and our guest this evening. And of course, if you guys have been listening to the show for the last, 12 and a half years, 12 and some odd years, there's always a connection there. So the clips that I play, the music that I play, there's always something there that's relevant to either the guest or a function or an event or something of that nature that we have recently attended or been part of. Right, Bobby? So he's nodding his head right now because I've got him in there thrashing on the thing. So let's see. The highlight of the event. Well, they always say that. What was your highlight of the event? I don't know. It's really hard to say. But, you just see some really cool cars and you meet some really interesting people. And so there's a couple of people there that I met that had some unusual cars. But, a lot of the vintage cars that were there. In fact, while I was there too, it was, you go on Facebook and, you go through Facebook Marketplace and you see a bunch of cars and stuff like that. But there was a company there called LBI. And it's kind of like they had what they call these pop-up dealerships. So what a pop-up is, and I wasn't familiar with the term, and what it is basically a dealer goes there, rents a building, has a couple of his clients consign cars. They're there on display, and one guy had a 1956 Porsche, which is probably the car that got my attention, 56 Porsche Speedster that was sitting in the building, and it was like 5 blocks from there, and I've drive up and down those streets all the time canvassing, looking for cool stuff. So this guy found it. I saw the Porsche sitting there many, many years ago, but I did not know that there was a Speedster sitting in the garage behind closed doors. What else do you have in the garage? Oh, I forgot to play that clip. Anyway, Bobby, go ahead and fire up the stereo, and we'll be right back with our special guest.
Virginia, fine. Straddling Greyhound Road, I've been to Raleigh on across Carolina. I had no trouble and turned into a struggle halfway across Alabama. Down, looked down and left us all stranded in downtown Birmingham. Right away, bought me a through train ticket across the Mississippi Plain. I was on that midnight flight out of Birmingham, smoking into New Orleans. Somebody gotta help me get out of Louisiana, just help me get to Houston town. Some people out there sure care a lot about me, and they won't let this poor boy down. Oh, you got it, steamer, do it, baby. Do it. Ow! Get him, Mike. Oh, wait a minute, now, let's do it. Shoes you bought, they bought me a silk suit, put the luggage in my hand. When I awakened, we were open Albuquerque on the trip to the promised land. I was working on a T-bone steak, headed to the Garden State. When the pilot said that in 13 minutes he would send us to the terminal gate. Sweet little cherry, come down easy, taxi to the terminal zone. Cut your engine to cool your wings and hope we make it to the telephone. Los Angeles, give me Norfolk, Virginia, Tidewater, 1405. I tell the folks back home, it's a promised land calling and the poor boys on the line. Okay, Picker, go get it.
No hard feelings. Oh.
Hi, I'm Barry McGuire, host of Car Crazy Television, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, we're back, and that was a little No Hard Feelings there, also John Wayne, and the song was Promised Land, and it was Wayne Newton's version of it. I think Chuck Berry did it originally. I know Elvis did it. So, but there's a connection with our special guest for the evening. This gentleman is a former GM designer. He's a well-known automotive artist, pinstriper, and illustrator. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this evening, Jerry Allward. Jerry, how are you this evening?
I'm fortunate to be here, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are too. So I'll tell you what, since you've never been on a show before, and a lot of my guests and listeners are probably not real familiar with you on the East Coast because you're kind of pretty well known on the West Coast. Give us a little background about yourself. Tell us some stories.
Well, I lay a little low. I don't really get myself out there that much, but as you mentioned, I'm an ex-General Motors designer, but I moved to California. I'll just do this quickly. I moved to California. Michigan was a little bit, I'm from Michigan. It was a little bit cold, and I'm a car guy, so, the cars were rusting out faster than I could build them.
I like that, rusting out faster than I could build them. Good one.
I came out to California, and which I was more of a car situation out here, and then I eventually moved to Newport Beach, got married and moved to Newport Beach, and I started my company, which was Jerry Allward Classic Automobiles in Newport Beach, and I had that for about 15 years. I did many high-end cars. I was in quite a, in a real good situation because a lot of car people in the neighborhood, so to speak. And
well, let's back up. Let's back up just for a second. And General Motors, what did you work on when you were at General Motors, and how long were you there? And when did you start?
Okay, I was only there for a short stint.
Really?
3 years.
Okay.
3 years. That. I'm trained as a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And I started at Saginaw Steering Gear Division, but they realized that I had an artistic type talent, which I endeavored to use if I could, and so it didn't take me long to start. I mean, I didn't design a complete car or anything. I think all the other designers will tell you that you end up you just do little sections. I did some on the Mako Shark 2. I did some steering system stuff and the pedals. On that particular car, that the seats don't move, the pedals move.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
And we had Saginaw Steering Gear had developed the energy absorbing steering column that moved tilt telescope. It would move to you. So on the Mako Shark, which was started in '64, finished up around '66, you get in the car and the pedals and the steering would come to you. In other words.
Okay.
And one of the things that I didn't like about the C1 Corvette, when you look at one, they have the bezels around the seat. And for example, if you had a young lady, a small lady, got in that car and she moved that seat forward, well, it just ruined the whole looks of the interior as far as I was concerned. So on the Mako Shark, the seats were stationary and they stayed where they were and it had a nice look to it. So the pedals came to you, and the pedals, another interesting thing where the pedals covered the whole floor down. There was just a seam between the accelerator and the brake. So you just moved your foot over, and that whole area on the left was the brake. And it's pretty wild.
Interesting. It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because when you see people going down the road, and I'll give you a good example. Any full size American convertible out of the '60s, or a two-door hardtop, and in particular, like you mentioned, the early Corvettes, you scoot that seat all the way up forward, and it's almost as if it affects the lines of the car to the point where it does look silly. And particularly in a C1 Corvette, you're right on top of the steering wheel. You don't have much distance between the driver and the steering wheel, the seat anyway. So that's an interesting thought that they said, let's do this. And so that's how the telescopic steering wheels kind of evolved, actually.
No, they had already developed that, and that was on all the GM cars at that time.
Oh, okay.
And but you can see what I mean. On a C1 Corvette, you move forward, you got a big hole right behind the driver's seat.
Yes.
If you're standing there looking at it, and then again, I must say that I'm not responsible for any of the actual. I did little bits and pieces and stuff like that, and some illustration and proposal illustrations and stuff like that is what I did. But when I got to California, I just wanted to get. I ended up buying a 35 Auburn supercharged convertible, which I was always enamored by those cars with the pipes coming out the side, the supercharged car, and that's what got me going on the classic cars. And it was I was already on classic cars. I had bought a 34 Packard back in Michigan, so I've always been a nut on the classics for sure.
So are you very partial to pre-war cars? I mean, big, heavy American classics like that era? So late 20s, early 30s?
I would say so. In the 30s, early 30s would be my specialty, so to speak. And when we did, in our business, we specialized in the big Packard. Well, I specialized in Auburn, Cord, and Duesenberg. I've owned upwards of 25 Auburns.
Oh, wow.
In my day. And my company built parts for them. We built parts for Duesenberg. I built maybe a dozen to 15 sets of Duesenberg Model J bumpers. And that was back in the day. And we offered a lot of sheet metal parts that we built in-house or had Bill Honda up at California Metal Shaping make them for us. And we also built Auburn Boattail Speedsters in steel. And
so these are replicas then?
That's correct. But for customers, we would convert like an Auburn sedan to a Boattail Speedster, and then how they wanted to represent it was up to them. Although I would never represent something that wasn't what it was. But some people would call them a restoration. I absolutely duplicated an Auburn Boattail body. I had an Auburn Boattail. We disassembled it. We duplicated the wood exact. I made all of the castings for the wood. I made the windshield frame. I made all of the woodwork exactly. Then we had in this case we had a guy by the name of Marcel Delay do the metal work and made the body over the wooden frame. And Marcel, rest in peace. He's been gone a few years now, but his sons still do it up in Fullerton, California. This beautiful metal work, and they did our Auburn boat-tail bodies. And the first one that we did actually won Auburn, Indiana, the big V12, and we did it for somebody, and he took it back and won Auburn, Indiana. But he represented it as an original restoration, is what he did. So I don't want to throw a wrench into everything, but it won Auburn, Indiana. In other words.
You know, that's a whole different topic for a whole different show. And I'm going to save that for someday when I bring you back on, because you and I can share some stories about what's authentic and what's not. And
we certainly could. And I'm into originality. I'm a nut on I think an original car is worth far more than a restored car. I have just to interject right here. I found a 32 Auburn V12 sedan. I found it actually in Los Angeles. It's through a long story, but it had 8,800 miles on it. 8,800 on a 32 Auburn V12, with the 6 knockoff wheels and the original paint. It had the original Firestone gum dip tires on it. It now resides in the Auburn Court Duesenberg Museum in Auburn, Indiana.
As an original survivor, as it was found.
It is a survivor. It's still got the original Firestone tires on it.
That's the way they should be. Yes, I agree.
Well, Skip Marchetti, who was the manager of the museum at that time, came out. He didn't believe the car existed. He came out and saw it, and they had to have it. There was a sponsor that bought the car, and so it now sits in the museum. But it's a beautiful. I sent you a picture of it.
Yes, I got that. It's interesting. I'm on your Facebook page right now, and I'm looking at some of your artwork, and I don't know how to define it. I mean, it's like it's got a very, and I'm going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, a very stylish Art Deco. And I'm gonna try to see if you remember this. There was a car that they showed racing, this Art Deco locomotive, and I'm not sure if it was a Rolls Royce. I don't know if it was a real car, because the story's still out on that, because I think it was a recreation. But your artwork is very similar to that, and truthfully, I find it very, very, it's stunning. It's stunning work. So there's this, and it kind of looks like, it's got that. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a car that has that grill, but it kind of slopes, starts at the top, slopes to the front, has a little bit of a shovel look to the front, and it's got these really projecting cone-shaped hubcaps that are coming off. It looks like a Duesenberg, basically, but like a roadster version, because it's got a low-profile windshield. But that style of artwork, what do you call that? I mean.
But the artist that you're speaking of is a guy by the name of Jack Giratobi.
Okay.
And, he's the one that had the stylized Duesenberg racing a train.
Yes.
And he's got several other ones too. But you're very kind in your remarks of my artwork, because it's. I pride myself on I don't copy anybody, or I don't, for the most part, I don't draw or illustrate vehicles that exist. In other words, I rely on I've got quite a background on classic cars. I love them. I've taken them apart, nuts and bolts, and like somebody said one time, you know those 35 Auburns? I said, yeah, I know them pretty good. I could draw you a picture of every part on that car, and that's how much I know those cars. And I lived and breathed for sure. All of my cars are based on it, and if you look at them, they have suspensions. They'll all work. In other words, engineering wise, they're not just a stylized artist depiction. They could be built if and they have been.
So tell us about some of the cars. So when you were at Newport and you had your shop and you were building cars, You had over the years you worked with a number of celebrities. Drop some names for us and tell us about some of their cars.
Well, I was fortunate enough to do quite a few of them, and we had a very nice shop. We painted. I did rolls for Jonathan Winters, the comedian. We ended up we painted his attorney's car for him. A guy by the name of Don Bringle, who was a Rolls Royce collector, and we painted his car so we could get the winner's job, so to speak. Is what
yeah.
And Winters and I hit it off. I loved that man, and he was a real character. He liked my shop. He came down about once a week and hung out with us. And what a character he was. We'd go down the street and have lunch, and he was not a drinker. He had quit drinking at that time, and I was a drinker then. And it's been 40 years since I've had a drink, but I was a drinker then. And he encouraged me to quit drinking and stuff. But when I met him, the day finally came that he showed up at the shop. Of course, I was all excited about it and stuff. And his attorney introduced me to him, and I said, well, nice to meet you, Mr. Winters. And he said, nice to meet you, Jerry. And I said, but let's get something straight right off the bat. He said, what's that, Jerry? And of course, his attorney's flipping out by that time. And I said, let's get something straight right off the bat. And he says, what's that, Jerry? And I said, I tell the jokes on my property. He put his arm around me. He says, we're going to be real good friends, Jerry. And that's how that started. So I did some work for John Wayne. John Wayne didn't live too far from me, actually. And again, I painted the captain of the Wild Goose was a guy named Bert Mitchell, and still is the captain of the Wild Goose, which was John Wayne's minesweeper. We painted Bert's Porsche for him, and then we ended up getting John Wayne's Blazer up, and we did that for him. And I did some work on he had a Pontiac station wagon that had the top extended so he could get in it with his cowboy hat. And, it was, he was a character for sure, John Wayne.
It's interesting you mentioned that because there's a book that was out many, many, many years ago, and it was called Cars and Stars, or Cars of the Stars. And that Pontiac station wagon was in there, and it had a raised roof. And as the story goes, it was a Barris custom car. And if so, did you collaborate with Barris on some of these celebrity cars?
No, I did not.
Okay.
George Barris has stopped in my shop. George used to vacation in Newport Beach each year, and he would stop in the shop, and we would talk, and he was a character for sure, and I respected him a great deal. But no, we didn't collaborate on that car. I did a little bit of work on the car, some paint touch up on the green station wagon.
Green station wagon, yes.
He had a few of them. It's funny you mentioned Cars of the Stars because my friend James and Jimmy Brucker owned Cars of the Stars in Buena Park, which was near me, and there was a lot of cars up there. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, in Buena Park, and that's where that was quite the place. I bought a few cars out of there, and but we cut a Rolls Royce in half for Wayne Newton and put 40 inches in it. Did a Ferrari for Phyllis Diller.
A Ferrari for Phyllis Diller?
Well, it was actually her son Terry's car.
Okay.
And if you want to know the details, it had a Chevy motor in it, believe it or not.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it was actually a rare little gem, But it had a Chevy with fuel injection in it, and they couldn't make it run. We took the fuel injection off and put a 4-barrel on it and made it run real nice, and that was the end of that. We did a little bit of paint touch up on it.
So since you come in contact with some of these, I mean, you're talking comedians here now, for example, let's say, and I mean, Wayne Newton was kind of funny. You know, he was a comic, kind of at times. Phyllis Diller is a well-known comedian, obviously, and Jonathan Winter. So what was it like with Phyllis Diller? Did she come in and clown around? And how many of these guys were really kind of car guys? A lot of these people?
Well, no, she was just doing this. You know, I never met her son, but I met her.
Okay.
And she was, you know, she was not like she is on TV, really. She was just a very nice lady, I thought.
Oh, okay.
And then, gosh, that reminds me of another one. A lady pulled in a big white Bentley Continental coupe one time, and a beautiful Continental coupe and a Bentley. And she climbed out of it, and it was Mamie Van Doren.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember Mamie Van
Yes.
Doren, but she was a Marilyn Monroe type, and she was a real character, that one. And she lived right down the street from my shop, believe it or not. And she would come in occasionally, and this white Bentley was, you know, it matched her because her hair was white.
Uh-huh.
You know? And she was, gosh, you know, Mamie Van Doren's still alive now. I think she's in her upper 80s, maybe. But she was very nice to me. And but she lived down the street, and that car had that white lamb's wool carpet in it. You know, the long-haired lamb's wool carpet and white upholstery. And it was something else.
What is the most unique car that you had the opportunity to work on or build? Something that really stands out that you go back and go, boy, that just leaves a lasting impression.
Well, we actually did quite a few. Actually, we did a two-check body Tuscano Suiza V12 three-position drop head, which is that's a $3 million car now. We did it back in the late 70s, took it to Pebble Beach in one class. I sent you a picture of it. And it's the maroon one. It started off a real crazy orange color. And but that's quite an automobile, the Tuscano Suiza. We did 3 or 4 Packard V12, which are wonderful cars. We did a lot of Auburn Booktail Speedsters. As far as unique, we had one of those Duesenberg 2 Speedsters, which was quite a deal. I bought that at the Newport Beach auction, and I only owned it for about a week and a half because it cost too much money. But that was quite the car too. I don't know if you're familiar with those. They were built in Elroy, Wisconsin, and they have Ford V8 power. And, they were quite a car for sure.
Now, we just came off Pebble Beach. Were you down there this past week?
No, I was not. And the last time I was there, believe it or not, is when I met you, Robert.
Oh, okay. That was a couple of years ago, I think, wasn't it?
In Monterey. And if the truth be known, I'm having a few health issues that I'm pretty much over now, but you know, I'm almost 80 years old. I'm getting up there. So like my friend says, "What's the matter with you, Jerry?" I said, "Do you want the list?"
No, you're a spring chicken. Come on. I was there with Uncle Arthur this week, and he's 80. And I was there with your friend Zell, and Zell's in his late 70s, right?
Yep.
Big shout out to him too. So now, wait a minute. Now, speaking of Zell, he's got kind of an interesting car collection, but I noticed that the airplane that's set up in his shop there, it looks like a early Cessna, maybe a little Cub or something like that.
120 Cessna.
Okay, so and I noticed you pinstriped it. Your pinstriping is exquisite, but I have to ask you this: did you ever, in your days, cross paths with Von Dutch or any of those guys?
Well, that's another story right there. You hit the button there.
I hit the button? Okay, good. Bing, ding, ding, ding.
Von Dutch used to work for my friend Jimmy Brucker, who I mentioned had Cars of the Stars.
Right.
He used to work there. This was in his later days. And Dutch drank too much.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not trying to be cruel or anything because I drank too much too at that time. And Dutch and I used to get
buzzed,
sit on that bus of his up in Buena Park. We'd sit there and drink and tell stories and lie to each other and on and on. But Dutch was quite the character, and I have to say that Dutch was a very, very talented man. And I'm not talking about his pinstriping. He's okay at pinstriping, but he was a gunsmith. And I don't know if you have ever seen the movie The Reavers.
No.
Well, it's a movie called The Reavers, and in the movie is an antique car. It's called a Winton Flyer.
Uh-huh.
And Dutch built that car from scratch.
Oh, really?
And I watched it happen. And he was a buddy of Steve McQueen.
Uh-huh.
And McQueen was one of my idols. I actually met him at Cars with the Stars. Dutch introduced me to him, and this fellow that was actually shorter than me turned around. He had hair down to his shoulders, and I looked at him and said, "This is Steve McQueen." I looked at him, when I looked him in the eyes, I thought, "Oh my goodness, it sure is." And but this was in his later days. He had long hair, but Dutch introduced me to Steve McQueen. And Steve McQueen starred in that movie, The Reavers.
Really? I'm going to have to look that up and watch that movie. Interesting.
Yeah, look it up. The Reavers, the car is called a Winton Flyer. And Dutch built that car from scratch.
Okay.
And Dutch was something else, for sure. I've been pinstriping for somebody asked me how long I've been doing it. I've been doing it since I was 14 years old. So I've been doing it for 60 some years, I think. And it was always a sideline, but believe it or not, I striped the Lexus today. So
I striped the Lexus. The Wolf. Where your middle name is Wolf, or you go by Jerry Wolf Allward. So does a Wolf, is that a real name, or is that something that you kind of adopted, or how does that come into play?
I'm named after my grandfather, who's Dr. Cherry Wolf.
Okay.
And that's Wolf with an E. He was a very well-known horse doctor in Iowa.
Oh, okay.
And he was quite the character. And my mother's maiden name is Wolf, and that's where the Wolf comes from.
Okay.
So Allward is kind of a tongue twister. So I've been pretty much known as Cherry Wolf most of my life. And so,
if you have to reflect back and you look at some of the most amazing stuff that you've done, what are some of the things you're most proudest of? In other words, is it your artwork? Is it the cars you've created? Is it some of your paint work, your pinstriping? What would it be? Well,
I'm just fortunate that I can do those things, and I endeavor to in those areas. I endeavor to be good at what I do, and I enjoy my artwork. I'm getting back at my artwork more at this point in time. Like I said, I did a new Lexus today, but I just did half of it. I did one side because the body shop fixed the other side.
Oh, okay.
What I do, I go in, and this is a painted pinstripe. This is not tape. I go in, and this was a 2-color, very thin pinstripe, three lines on the one side. And I went in. It took me most of the day to do the one side, and so I'm very fortunate that I can still do it. I'm as steady as I ever was, and like I say, I want to be able to do it as long as I can. So that's where that is.
Okay. On your Facebook, I stumbled across this little thing, Ernie Ball. Now, when I think Ernie Ball, me being a lousy guitarist, I'm thinking Ernie Ball, guitar parts, strings. Am I on the right page there? Is there a connection there with Ernie Ball? Because he was a guitar guy. He had a guitar.
Ernie Ball Guitar Strings. They're actually the biggest string company in the world now.
Okay.
And when I first got married, one of my first jobs, Ernie hired me to. I had a car shop near a small car shop where I was playing with my cars, and Ernie would drop by all the time, and he liked cars as well.
Okay.
And Ernie ended up hiring me. I didn't think he could afford me, to be honest with you, but he hired me, and I drew. They still use my string labels to this day that I drew for him. And,
Really?
Yep. And I walked in a store in San Francisco, and the Super Slinky and this and that. And, I did a lot of artwork for Ernie. I started a car company for him called Grand Era Automobiles, and we had a bunch of cars for a while in Newport Beach, and I would buy cars for him and sell them and making money and this and that. And then I decided I need to get off on my own, which is what I did. I started my own company, which was it was actually less than a half a block from Ernie on Placentia Avenue. And I made sure that my location was Newport Beach. I was 60 feet into Newport Beach. And,
well, Newport's kind of a pricey area, so but I mean it's very trendy, and it's you're getting down there by towards La Jolla and Laguna, and that's a nice area down there, though.
Well, it was beautiful, and I'm not a wealthy man, or nor was I ever, but I lived on Balboa Island with my wife, and I had a nice spot down there. But it's way past me at this point in time. It's so crowded down there now. That's the part I didn't like. But
Well, how'd you end up in Santa Rosa? I mean, that's kind of like north end of the pole there in California. Almost.
I ended up, I hate to admit it, but back to the, I got a divorce. I drank too much. I ended up selling my business to a company called Metal Crafters. And Metal Crafters is a very well-known, they do the prototype work for the major automobile companies now.
Oh, okay.
They now have over 400 employees, but they took over Jerry Allward Classic Automobiles and started building their prototypes there. I worked for them for a little while during the transition. I then went to Phoenix and ended up flying up to Sonoma County with my good buddy Dr. Beck, and that's where that airplane stuff started. I got that airplane for Zell.
Jerry, we're up against the clock right now, but if people want to find out about you real quick, what I want to do is I want to bring you back next week and do part 2. Are you up for that? Let's do part 2 next week.
I'm up for it.
Okay, good man. Okay, so real quick, if somebody wants to find out about you, because we only got a few seconds and they zip us off the air. Real quick, if people want to find out more about Jerry Wolf, how do they go about doing it?
The best place to see my stuff is on Facebook, Jerry Allward Art and Color.
Okay, you got it. Jerry, I want to thank you. I know I hate it when the checker flag comes down, but it does every once in a while. But we will have you back next week for part 2, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions next week. So in the meantime, you take care. Say hi to everybody up in Santa Rosa. And I want to thank my special guest, Jerry Allward, for hanging out with us here at Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Car designer, illustrator, journalist, artist, all that cool stuff. Anyway, Jerry, take care. In the meantime, hey, everybody tune in next week, 7 to 8 p.m. on Tan Talk Radio Network. In the meantime, stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
WTAN Clearwater,
FM 106.1,
WDCF Dade City,
FM 102.3,
WZHR Zephyrhills,
FM 104.3.
Listen.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance.
I'm Jennifer Kuiper in Chicago. North Texas is cleaning up after flooding across much of the region. The storms moved into the lower Mississippi Valley with heavy rain sweeping across northern Louisiana. CBS's Omar Villafranca.
The storm that flooded parts of Texas has dropped as much as 8 inches of rain across sections of the Gulf Coast states, with more to come. The Weather Channel's Justin Michaels was in Monroe, Louisiana, just east of Shreveport, when the storm hit.
The kind of flooding we're seeing here is in neighborhoods and on streets, and they did have some neighborhood and street flooding just yesterday. With the amount of rain we're experiencing, there is concern that could happen again.
The record-breaking storm pounded parts of Texas, dumping more than a foot of rain, sparking flash floods and hundreds of water rescues.
The polls are closed in Florida and Oklahoma, 2 of the 3 states holding primaries today. 2 political titans are facing off in New York's primary thanks to redistricting. Congressman Jerry Nadler and Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. Some voters talked to WCBS's Steve Burns.
It's a shame that they have to go up against each other, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Voters say they did their research.
Seems to be some difference, but not a great difference. It's going to be close.
In Oklahoma, GOP voters choose between Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen and T.W. Shannon as their candidate to replace retiring U.S. Senator James Inhofe. The winner faces Democratic ex-Congresswoman Kendra Horn in November. There's new information on what kind of classified materials were allegedly taken from former President Trump's home by the FBI. CBS's Robert Costa with the latest.
A newly revealed letter from the National Archives to Donald Trump's legal team details the alarm inside the federal agency about Trump's possession of highly classified material. Specifically, among the boxes Trump took with him to his Mar-a-Lago estate were over 100 documents with classification markings comprised